You guys know how I feel about people giving interviews before they're about to have their trial happen. However, for Karen Read, it is going to be her second trial. And you know what? Maybe in her scenario, it's a lot different because she is surrounded by incredible attorneys. Like when I was watching Ellen Jackson, her other attorney, Mr. Yannetti, and now she has a new attorney, Mr. Alessi, who's going to be representing her as well. I think, you know what? Maybe she's in good hands. Maybe it's okay for her to give the interview after all, because, you know, sometimes there's been other cases that we've been covering, and when they give the interview, sometimes the court will try to, or not the court, but sometimes the prosecutor will try to use those interviews against you to make you look bad, or be like, oh, hey, by the way, you said this in public TV. You know, I'm always really hesitant about people giving interviews because you never know how it might bite you in the ass later on. Now, I think they're rolling out her interview in parts and small sequences, so we're just going to cover it as it comes out. But before we get to the interview, who exactly is Karen Read? Karen Read already had her trial last year in 2024. She was charged with murdering her boyfriend at the time, Officer John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer. They allege that Karen Read and Officer O'Keefe got into maybe some sort of argument. Karen was mad. She drops him off at the friend's house. And because she was so pissed off, she must have backed up into him and then drove off and not giving a shit about what happened to John O'Keefe. Karen Read, however, says she didn't do it. She didn't do this at all. That maybe it was someone else who did this and framed her instead. Possibly the people that were inside the house where she dropped John O'Keefe off. And so when the trial happened, oh my God, it was probably one of the messiest trial I've ever seen. When I say messy, I don't mean like messy on both sides. It was so messy on the prosecution side. So messy. A lot of the very key important witnesses, like the lead detective, the people who did the crash reconstruction guy. Now, there were some good witnesses. However, the key ones that we were really heavily relying on, they were just a flop to me. And then some of the evidence was presented. Oh gosh, it was just, yeah, it really was just like one of the messiest trial I have ever seen. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. I don't know how they move forward with charging. I know they wanted to delay the trial, but the judge wanted to move forward. So maybe that was a huge factor as well. Maybe the state was not ready to prosecute, but the trial was declared a mistrial. And so Karen Read and her team, they have gone to the Supreme Judicial Court to ask for two of the charges to be dismissed, and mainly the main charge, which is a second-degree murder. And then one was like, oh, I always forget this one. It's like leaving the crime scene of a personal injury and death. Okay, I'm close to that. And so they wanted to have those two charges dismissed. Why? Because they said after the mistrial was declared, the jury, some of them had reached out to them saying that like, hey, actually, there was a unanimous decision on two of the charges. And because there was no polling of the jury, I mean, the polling didn't happen on both sides. The judge didn't do it, and then also the defense didn't request it, and the prosecution didn't request it as well. But I think the reason why they didn't is because in the jury note, they were pretty damn clear, in my opinion, that, hey, they couldn't come to a unanimous decision on any of the charges. That's the sentiment that I felt. And these notes were written by someone who was like very, very well written, or not very well written, but they know how to write really well. And so now that we're moving forward in the second trial, it's like, well, if the jury had already maybe unanimously decided, why charge her again? And so the Supreme Court, they did deny that, saying that like, okay, well, you know, we agree with Judge Cannoni, the trial court, in not dismissing two of those charges. And so before we get to the interview, I really want to watch this interview. I haven't seen it yet, by the way. We're going to read the Supreme Judicial Court's decision and their little explanation why. We're not going to read the entire thing though, but just the main gist of it. The defendant challenges the denial of her motion to dismiss after her first trial ended in a mistrial. The trial was lengthy, spanning 8 weeks of evidence involving 74 witnesses and 657 exhibits. The defendant does not contend that this evidence was legally insufficient to support a conviction on any of the charges, which would preclude retrial. Instead, her argument focuses on whether the trial judge, Judge Cannoni, properly declared a mistrial and the relevance, if any, of the post-trial counts of jury deliberations. The jury deliberated for 5 days, sending progressively insistent notes to the judge about their inability to reach a unanimous verdict. In their third and final note, the jury stated that some members firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof establishing the elements of the charges, while others did not. They described their views as rooted in sincere adherence to their individual principles and moral convictions, and stated that further deliberation would be futile and would force them to compromise these deeply held beliefs. The notes that were coming out were very clear to me. It's like they couldn't come to agreement, and you know what? There's no way to convince the other side, okay? Based on this final note, the judge declared a mistrial. Let's watch a little clip from that.
Continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service. Okay.
And it happened so quickly. That's it. So the jury leaves. Of course, the family of John O'Keefe, they're very disappointed. Karen Reed, I'm sure they're ecstatic at this point because, mistrial is better than getting a guilty verdict, especially if she felt like she didn't do this. The defendant's motion to dismiss and this petition relies on post-trial accounts from several jurors. These accounts suggest that during deliberation, the jury unanimously agreed the defendant was not guilty on 2 of the 3 charges and were deadlocked only on the remaining charge. The defendant argues that a mistrial was thus not manifestly necessary because the judge could have requested a partial verdict from the jury before discharging them. The defendant further asserts that these post-trial accounts show she was in effect acquitted of 2 charges and that double jeopardy bars retrial on those accounts. Now, apparently in Massachusetts, it's very common to not poll the jury, but damn, after hearing about this case moving forward, you can be damn sure the defense will probably be like, you know what? Can we poll the jury, please? Let's poll the jury. Let's see what's up. Like, I feel like moving forward, attorneys are going to start polling because if this happens, like this sort of like technicality, that is so fucking frustrating. This petition thus raises the question, can post-trial accounts of jurors' private deliberations that are inconsistent with their public communications in court render the declaration of a mistrial improper or constitute an acquittal, where the jury did not announce or record the verdict in open court? We conclude that they cannot. The jury clearly stated during deliberations that they had not reached a unanimous verdict on any of the charges and could not do so. Now, something that someone mentioned was it could be possible that maybe the jury could have unanimously decided not to go for second-degree murder because they were all having a compromise. They were all compromising. It was like, hey, fine, you know what? I truly believe in second-degree murder, but I'm willing to compromise and maybe go for the lesser charge of manslaughter instead. So that could have been possible, maybe, Only after being discharged did some individual jurors communicate a different supposed outcome, contradicting their prior notes. Such post-trial disclosures cannot retroactively alter a trial's outcome, either to acquit or to convict. Accordingly, we affirm the trial judge's denial of the motion to dismiss and the defendant's request for a post-trial juror inquiry. And what I was saying about the compromise, it's possible that so if there were some jurors who wanted to get her for second-degree murder, and then they were like, you know what, I'm willing to compromise for the manslaughter, but if we can't agree on manslaughter, then I'm going to go back to second-degree murder. So it's possible that could have been some of the discussions amongst the jurors as well. Should we read the background? Yeah, let's read the background. But if you guys want to go straight to the interview, go ahead. There's chapters down below. I'm going to read the background. Background 1. Trial and deliberations. In 2022, the grand jury returned 3 indictments against the defendant. Murder in the second degree, count 1. Manslaughter while operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol, count 2. And leaving the scene of personal injury resulting in death, count 3. Trial began in April 2024 and lasted over 2 months. Over the 37th day, the jury received instructions regarding 3 indictments and 2 lesser included offenses for count 2. Involuntary manslaughter and motor vehicle homicide. Before deliberations began, the judge indicated that the 4 persons of the jury will be given separate verdict slips for each of the 3 indictments. The judge then explained the procedure for delivering the verdicts. After the final vote for the jury, the 4 persons should check the appropriate boxes as to each charge, then sign and date the verdict slips and notify the court officer that you had reached a unanimous verdict. You will then be brought back into the courtroom where the 4 person will deliver the verdicts to the court. The judge also instructed the jury to continue deliberating until you have reached a final verdict on each charge and to not disclose their numerical standing or progress to anyone, including the judge, before such time as you have reached a unanimous verdict. The jury then began deliberations. 3 days later, after approximately 19 hours of deliberations, the 4 persons submitted a note to the judge. First note that stated, I am writing to inform you on behalf of the jury that despite our exhaustive review of the evidence and our diligent consideration of all the disputed evidence, we have been unable to reach a unanimous verdict. After reading the note in the court or in the record, the judge requested argument for the parties on whether the jury had conducted due and thorough deliberations, warranting a so-called Tui Rodriguez charge. The Commonwealth argued that the jury had not deliberated long enough, and while the defense disagreed, requested the instruction and assertion that the 4 persons' use of the word exhaustive suggested an impasse. The judge determined that further deliberations were appropriate and instructed the jury to continue. So, if I was on the defense, I'd be like, you know what? I'd rather have a mistrial than have him come back with a guilty verdict. So, if we get a mistrial this one, all right, fuck it. We'll do trial number 2. Deliberations extended through the afternoon and resumed the following Monday morning. At 10:45 a.m., the jury 4 persons submitted another note to the judge. Second note, which stated, Despite our commitment to the duty entrusted to us, we find ourselves deeply divided by fundamental differences in our opinions and state of mind. The divergence in our views are not rooted in the lack of understanding or effort, but deeply held convictions that each of us ultimately carry, leading to a point where consensus is unattainable. We recognize the weight of this admission and the implications it holds. I want this person to be writing my emails for me. Oh my goodness. Upon receiving this note, the judge again invited argument from both parties. The Commonwealth acknowledged that the jury had already deliberated in the vicinity of 22 to 23 hours. Damn. But nonetheless argued it was premature to conclude that the deliberations had been due and thorough. Defense counsel, however, maintained the jury were hopelessly deadlocked and again requested a Tui Rodriguez instruction. The judge agreed with the defense counsel, noting that the jury had been extraordinary and she had never seen a note like this reporting to be at an impasse. The judge then delivered the Tui Rodriguez instruction to the jury and sent them back to deliberate further. Approximately 2:30 p.m., the foreperson submitted yet another note to the judge. This is the third note, which stated, "Despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet the standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges." The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate will be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. After receiving the third note, and this is a video that I showed you guys earlier, the judge was like, okay, well, the jury's at an impasse. I'm not going to do that to you guys. So you know what? I'm going to declare a mistrial. The judge then discharged the jury back to the deliberation room, explaining that she would meet them there privately to thank him for their service. The judge and the parties remained in the courtroom to discuss their availability for scheduling a status conference on the matter. At no point during the discussion did defense counsel object to the judge's declaration of a mistrial or express disagreement with the outcome. Number 2, post-trial events. According to affidavits submitted by the defense counsel, a member of the deliberating jury, Juror A, contacted defense counsel on July 2nd, 2024, after noticing inaccurate reports about the jury's alleged split that caused a mistrial the day before. Juror A stated that the jury had unanimously agreed that the defendant was not guilty of count 1, murder in the second degree, and count 3, leaving the scene of personal injury resulting in death. 2 days after the mistrial, defense counsel also received screenshots of text message exchange with jurors or their acquaintances describing the deliberations. In one exchange, and then a member of the Juror B, wrote, "It was not guilty on second degree and split in half for the second charge." I wonder if the person who had their messages screenshot, I wonder if they feel a little bit miffed about those. Like, damn, you screenshotting my messages? Or maybe they wanted it to happen. I don't know. Maybe they were like, hey, I'm too scared to reach contact to the attorneys directly. Can you just screenshot our messages and then do it for me? In another exchange, an individual referred to as an informant by the defense counsel was advised that another Juror C, had told friends there were no consideration of murder in the second degree, and the jury deadlocked on the remaining charges. I mean, it would be very interesting to hear from all the jurors to see what they actually say about this. I mean, it's possible that there was no maybe it was possible that there was no compromise, whereas it's like everyone's like, hey, second degree? Oh, hell no. Yeah, they did not prove second degree. Yeah, let's just move on to the next one. That's where they were completely deadlocked. So that's possible too. The exchange contained no mention of count 3, but it said that manslaughter started polling at 6-6 and then ended deadlock at 4 no, 8 yes. Juror C also had reportedly stated the jurors had a group text going. Upon receiving this information, and the informant commented if they all agreed on no for murder 2, they should make that clear to the DA and the court. It's basically a case of double jeopardy if she is retried on that charge. On July 8, 2024, 1 week after the mistrial, the defendant filed a motion to dismiss based on these post-trial accounts. The defendant argued that accounts showed the jury had effectively acquitted her of counts 1, murder in the second degree, and 3, leaving the scene of a personal injury resulting in death. So moving forward, I'm sure the defense attorney is going to be like, okay, well, maybe we should start polling, and then, I don't know, really make sure the jury instructions are like super duper fucking clear or something. Because, oh my gosh, the This is frustrating. This is very frustrating. She further contended that the judge's mistrial declaration was improper for those 2 counts and requested at a minimum a post-verdict inquiry to confirm whether the jury had agreed she was not charged with those charges. The defense counsel later supplemented the motion with accounts from 2 additional jurors. One, Juror E, stated that the jury had been deadlocked on the lower charges on count 2. The other juror, Juror D, stated the jury's disagreement solely concerned count 2 and its lesser offenses. Juror D indicated the jury had debated whether to inform the judge of their decision on counts 1 and 3, but they were uncertain if they were allowed to do so. Juror D claimed that after discussing the matter, the jury ultimately decided to inform the court that they were deadlocked, and they expect to go further in instruction about the remaining decided counts thereafter. To me, the note seems really clear-cut that they were unable to come to a unanimous decision on any of the charges. I can see why maybe the jurors did not want to be like, hey, we are deadlocked on manslaughter, because I think in the jury instructions, the sentiment that I got was, we don't want to know any of the progress that you're making on your decision. We just want to know the complete and full outcome. The Commonwealth also submitted a post-trial filing notifying the court that after the submission of the defense counsel's affidavits, it also received 2 voice messages from the member of the jury. The jury specified that the jury had voted not guilty on counts 1 and 3, and as of last vote, 9-3 guilty on the lower level manslaughter charges. The Commonwealth also received emails from the 3 individuals who identified themselves as jurors and asked them to speak anonymously. Once the Commonwealth informed them, though, that it may be required to disclose the substance of their communication to defense counsel or the court, however, the jurors declined to communicate further. The trial judge denied the defendant's motion to dismiss after a non-evidentiary hearing. The judge reasoned that because there's no open and public verdict affirmed in the open court in this case, the defendant was not acquitted of any of these charges, and that any post-trial voir dire of jurors would involve an impermissible inquiry into the substance of the jury's deliberation. The Supreme Judicial Court, they say that the note from the foreperson was pretty fucking clear, and they don't know what the jury did after the mistrial was declared. They don't know if the jury had talked to friends, family members, maybe were influenced, or maybe if they did their own research. But to take the word of some of the jurors and say that oh, okay, well, we're just going to dismiss charges 1 and charges 3. Well, since it wasn't officially recorded, we can't acquit her of those charges, which to me is I don't know, this whole thing, like I said, is very fucking frustrating, especially if you believe that the jury had unanimously decided that Karen was not guilty of the serious charge, murder 2. And you know what? If I remember correctly, I do remember Alan Jackson arguing with Judge Cannoni about making a portion of the jury instruction more clear. I think eventually she did acquiesce, but I do remember her giving him the attitude. But I'm sure as hell, trial number 2, when it comes to jury instruction, we are going to be goddamn very, very effing clear. Additionally, the judge rejected the defendant's argument that declaring a mistrial was improper. She noted the defense counsel had twice requested the Tui Rodriguez instruction, the final step preceding a mistrial, and raised no objections, nor made any requests to be heard when the mistrial was declared. The judge remarked the defense counsel was no shrinking violets during the trial, making it unlikely that when counsel heard the jury was at an impasse for the 3rd time, the mistrial was inevitable. At perhaps the most crucial point in the trial, the counsel would sit silently if they did not consent to a mistrial. She also concluded that in any event, the mistrial was manifestly necessarily given the jury's repeated statements of deadlocked. On September 11, 2024, the defendant filed a petition for relief in the county's court. A single justice of the court reserved and reported the matter without decision to the full court. And scrolling down to the conclusion, for the reasons stated above, the trial judge correctly denied the defendant's motion to dismiss and request for the post-trial jury inquiry. The case is remanded to the county court for entry of judgment denying the defendant's petition for relief. So ordered. So, okay, trial number 2, I think it's going to be the same thing. I think they're still going to go after her for second-degree murder, which I don't know what new evidence they may have dug up, but we'll see. And, we're going to go with second-degree murder, the manslaughter, and then also leaving the, I always forget this one. Leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Okay, we're here. Let's watch this is one-on-one interview, but Alan Jackson's right next to her. Let's watch the interview.
Read over 2 days with and without her attorneys. We asked for the interview and were somewhat surprised.
Oh, 2 days with and without her attorneys? Okay.
Surprised, she said yes.
I have nothing to hide. My life is in the balance, and it shouldn't be. I've seen the more information the public has, the more they understand what we already know. Little did I know, I'd reconnect with someone I had dated nearly 20 years earlier, and then he would be tragically killed, murdered, and I've been framed for it.
How much do you think about him?
I think about him in terms of his final days, his final weeks. I mean, we have his cell phone, which a cell phone to anyone is like a diary. The time that I spent with John, 2 years, it's now been 3 since he's gone. And I have very mixed feelings, you know, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death.
Poor decisions by whom?
By both of us. Just drinking, being around the wrong people is chief among them.
Reed admits drinking in the hours before O'Keefe was found unresponsive.
She just repeated the phrase over and over again, I hit him, I hit him.
Multiple first responders testified that Reed initially...
Yeah, because before she dropped off John O'Keefe at the friend's house, they were actually all hanging out together. They were like bar hopping at 2 different bars. It was a lot of people there. Yeah, a lot of people. So we had a lot of testimonies in trial number 1, and a lot of them were like redundant testimonies. So I hope Mr. Hank Brennan, I hope he cleans it up, please. I'm sure he will. I've liked his performance so far. I know a lot of you guys do not, but you know what? I will take anyone over Lolly. But I'm not saying that like the reason why I like Hank Brennan is because Lolly did so poor in comparison to Lolly. Anyone could look good. I really do like Hank Brennan. I don't know. He has a defense attorney style that I really like. Like when he does a cross examination, like boom, boom, boom to the point. And not only you guys are like, oh, he seems rude and stuff, but like I just think that's just the style. That's just the way it is.
Said herself she hit O'Keefe with her SUV. Reed says she only questioned if she could have hit him.
Yeah, so the big thing with that is like, did Karen Reed say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him? Or did she say with a different intonation, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him? Or did she say, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Whew. Ah, gosh.
Yeah, I went through every possibility.
And you know what I'm so disappointed about this trial? I wish, why were there no like body cam footage? Come on now, we got like one body cam, we got like one camera footage when initially when you know they responded to the scene, but subsequent to that we didn't have body cam footage of the officers interacting with Karen Reed. We don't have video, audio of interviews with Karen Reed with the witnesses. Like, gosh, man, what a mess! This is such a mess.
He was near the road, and he was dying, and I didn't think he was purposely put in that place. It did not cross my mind for several days that they did this to John, that John was treated like a piece of garbage.
And by they, she's referring to the people that were in the house that night. Now, they don't know exactly who could have participated, but it was, I think, if I remember, who were they again? There was like the McCabe's, the Alberts, or they're the McAlberts. Oh, no, they would call them the McAlberts. Okay, the McCabe's, who were the Jen McCabe and her husband, Matt McCabe, who was there. I think their daughter was there. And then the Alberts, husband, wife. Oh, and then they're also their family as well. I think the Alberts had the sister and her husband was there. And then their kids were there. God, there was like so many people involved in this. And so basically they're saying it was like a whole like family/friend cover up. And then some of the people that were in the house also worked for law enforcement as well. Yeah, it's a whole mess.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
What is the one thing in this case you believe proves your innocence?
John's body, no bruise, 6,000-pound full-size SUV, not a bruise.
Now, when she says no bruise, I think what she means like no bruise below, like head down, because he was apparently allegedly hit with her car. She drives this like giant Lexus SUV, and what she said it was like 6,000 pounds. Yeah. John O'Keefe did have a bruise or some sort of like bruising in the back of his head. And then like his 2 eyes looked like it had like black eyes. However, it was explained that, you know, that when you're hit with the back of the head with such power, sometimes like, Jesus, I don't remember this from the trial, but like if you're hit in the back of the head, it's not uncommon for medical examiners to see that you might have like what looks like black eyes. However, what she's trying to say like, well, maybe John O'Keefe was in a fight. Maybe he got punched in the eye. Maybe that's how it happened. And he also has some scuffing on his knuckles as well. So the way that the state and the defense is presenting what could have happened to John O'Keefe, they're like completely different. One was like John O'Keefe was hit by Karen Reed's car. The other one was that John O'Keefe was got in a fight and then he was dragged out and left out in the snow.
Bruise on his body, not a fracture below his head.
If you were framed, who's calling the shots?
I don't know the interconnections, the interpersonal relationships among these people. I have a strong personal opinion that what has motivated this persecution of me is power. I'm not afraid of taking the stand.
Here's the thing. After the shit show of the state presenting its case, I think a lot of people have the sentiment that Karen Read did not have to go. She did not have to go up there and testify. She just did not. The case was just so messy. By the time it was the defense's turn to present their case, it was such a shit show. Usually, like, by the time the state presents their case, it's like, damn, man, this is like some good shit. Like, whoo, good luck, defense. Good luck climbing up that mountain. No, by the time the state finished their case, it was just like, wow, that's really what they had? Okay. Holy shit. Good luck, jury. Good luck.
Clearly not afraid of speaking, but they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
And now I want to make it clear to you guys that by the end of the trial, I was not like 100% convinced that the setup was done by the people that were in the house, but I can see why people believe that, because the people that were involved, the law enforcement, they were just so incompetent. It was just so messy. That sometimes when there's so much incompetence happening, maybe at some point, maybe it is malicious. To me, I still think they were just incompetent as fuck. I just think they're so incompetent. And then also on the other side, do I believe that the state showed beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen Read did it in any way? Maybe it was manslaughter, second degree? No. They just did not do a good job at proving their case at all. I think at most what the state got me at was like, okay, maybe she did it accidentally and she didn't realize it, but even that's like, I wouldn't even feel confident saying that. I wish one of the neighbors had like a ring cam on that night or something like that, or some surveillance cam. They're like, oh, hey, by the way, you know what? I've been hanging on to this for like a couple years. Here's what really happened. Like, what the fuck happened to John O'Keefe?
Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care.
Lolly all the way. So easy, okay? Lolly all the way.
Who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys. Do your worst.
That's a good answer.
One of the possible outcomes here could be a conviction. That could be prison time. How much have you thought about that?
I think about it every day, about prison time, and it doesn't frighten me the way it did 3 years ago.
Reed sold her Mansfield home in November to help pay her estimated $5 million in legal fees. Supporters have donated $750,000 to her defense fund. And she says people routinely pick up her meals.
I don't know the last time I've done anything but tip a waiter. And that generosity, that's all helping fuel this. It helps me spiritually, and it helps me financially.
She's well aware not everyone has her back. John O'Keefe's family is convinced she's a killer. And
Yep, they did the interview after the mistrial was declared. They believe it's her. They think she did it.
Filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her.
Do you feel the presence of the O'Keefe family behind you in court?
I honestly, I almost look through them. Paul sitting there doesn't impact me. It doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. They've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it.
Online, Reed is bombarded by love and hate. Yes, she pays attention.
This case has become your identity. Is that for the rest of your life, or will one day you just want to put it all behind you?
I don't think I can, even if I wanted to. And I'm okay with that.
Okay, I think there's like 2 more videos. Oh my gosh, this is about Proctor. Oh gosh. Trooper Proctor. Are we going to bring Trooper Proctor back for trial number 2? Listen, they're doing some investigation with Trooper Proctor right now. Like, there's some fire under his ass, okay?
What troubles me is how evil people are.
Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though.
Proctor was just letting the public know what I've known about Michael Proctor, who he really is. Nothing Michael Proctor texted and admitted out loud in court about me would ever offend me.
Your figures of speech include the following. She's a bitch.
Objection.
Is that right?
Yes.
You spent hours having him read those out loud. I'm sure that was done by design.
It was. Everything that we did.
I would feel so grossed out, like just like, oh, infinitely grossed out. Like him saying like, oh, she's a babe. Like, I would just feel so grossed out. Like having a guy like that say that, oh gosh. And he was married too. Like this guy, oh God, this guy is like, he just seems so grimy, like a slime.
In that cross-examination of Michael Proctor was done by design.
There was an effort to indict Reed on new witness intimidation charges last March. It failed. Reed says even people around her were under scrutiny.
Our drivers have been approached by the state police, had very close friends, had their cell phone records subpoenaed for an indictment that never happened.
Have you ever been followed?
I don't know. My eyes are akimbo all the time. I look at law enforcement differently, more warily.
How do you know you're being tracked?
I know from affidavits from the state police at the Norfolk DA's office. They knew what flight I was on, they knew when I landed, they knew when I came back, and it's disturbing. It's invasive, and it's desperate.
She comes across as very smart and analytical, that every move that they're making, she's a part of, and it's calculated. I think she says to me she has nothing to hide and wants to get her message out. I would expect that, they went over the pros and the cons of this. With a trial fast approaching, and in the end, they thought it was something that they wanted to do. It's not the first time that she's gone on in a segment like this. She did a couple national interviews.
Okay, so here's the other one that was uploaded. This one is 2 minutes long.
I picture every day that they're working on framing me.
State Trooper Michael Proctor's personal text messages, butt dials, and discarded phones.
The discarded phones, man. Oh, gosh. Because I was thinking okay, well, maybe these people have something else to hide. Like, if they weren't involved in this, cover-up stuff, maybe these people are, up to, some other really filthy shit, and they had to discard their phones because they didn't want it to be uncovered in this case, just in case. You never know. I don't know, man. Some weird stuff. Yeah. I think, is it him? Is he the one that discarded his phone on a military base and then, took apart their phone, the SIM card, the blah, 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 and all that stuff? I mean, I get it. There are some people that don't want the government or anyone to know what's inside their phones, what they browse, what they text, and stuff like that. But damn, this is just, it looks so bad.
Pull the SIM card out of your phone, Mr. Higgins.
Independent scientists who testified that John O'Keefe's injuries were not from an SUV.
The theory of the case.
The ARCA guys that they weren't even hired by the defense, but the ARCA guys actually they were hired by the feds because there's a federal investigation to this that we don't know anything about. But these guys, they said that there was I remember I think they said that if the glass was thrown into the taillight, he wouldn't have been able to throw it hard enough in a way that would crack the taillight, I think, right? Or if the car backed up into him, it wouldn't have caused those injuries on him. I don't know. I just remember that these guys were excellent witnesses. Excellent witnesses. And these are the guys, one of the main reasons why I would not have been comfortable with finding Karen Reed guilty on any of these charges. Because I think they did such a good job. So, the state, they need to step it up. They need to find some good experts that are convincing.
Case is a car accident. The federal materials included a report that said
if they won't even have, sorry, I didn't even finish my sentence. If they even want to have a lick of a chance of convincing the jury that it was Karen Reed that did it. Otherwise, good luck.
The theory of the case is a car accident.
Okay, so I found my notes from the ARCA testimony. Dr. Daniel Wolf, I think that's the person that was on the screen just now. So there were 3 tests that they did. The first test was, would it be possible if someone threw a cocktail drink at the taillight, would it break? And they said, in this case, probably not. And it was also, what if someone was holding a cocktail glass and then the car backed up and the taillight was hit by it, I guess. They also said probably not as well. And then what if the taillight had backed up into someone and then it hit the back of their skull? And they also said most likely, not likely as well. They kept saying the damage was not consistent. Damage was not consistent. Damage was not consistent. Damage was not consistent.
The federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's 95% of the case.
The feds devoted a lot of time and resources investigating what happened here. We are now years removed from that, and there's been no action taken.
Well, I don't know that there's been no action taken.
But no indictments?
No indictments.
25 investigators learned the Norfolk DA's office has communicated with the U.S. Attorney's Office about this case since Reed's mistrial in July. The DA's office denied our public records requests for any emails or letters, citing in part a federal protective order.
Do you expect that having a new
head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston will change anything?
But I can say that I was very, very happy with what they did and what they disclosed, trying to get the truth out previously, and I hope Ms. Foley does the same thing. I'm looking forward to her continuing the investigation. I hope she does.
As for Michael Proctor, he's scheduled to have a disciplinary hearing tomorrow to determine his future.
All right, that's it. That's all we got. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. They're going to continue uploading it, but that's what we got so far with Karen Read. Her trial, oh gosh, it was initially scheduled for, I think like right now, like January, but they did get to push it out to, was it to April? They pushed it out. I don't have the date here. What the heck? Okay, but they pushed it out though. So looking forward to seeing what happens in round 2. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be completely different, because if it's just the same trial number 1, but tried by a different person, like, ooh, what a waste of time. That's it, guys. That's it for today. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a good one. And yeah, guys, take care. Take care. I'll see you guys later. I'm so glad to be back. I had fun on my Italy trip, but I was so glad to be back, because there's so many things I just want to cover. Anyways, guys, have a good one. Take care, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.